I'm Derek Irene. I've been in the real estate business for over 3 decades. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm always paying attention to real estate trends, industry innovators, and business influencers.
I'm Alan Smith. For over 25 years, I've helped buyers and sellers with their real estate needs. Join us on this podcast. Let's talk about strategies to help you play this real estate game to win.
Join us as we search out the latest trends, hot topics, red flags, and deal breakers in every episode of Market Movers. We're rolling. So
Are we rolling?
Here we are.
Wow.
How's it going?
Well, we're honored once again to have the great
The great
Howard Chung flown in at great expense to be
Absolutely.
here. Thanks for.
I have to have a clip of the great one. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I always like to show my wife, hey, look, other people think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, we do.
So I'll start off by asking you a question. I know you're a voracious reader.
Yeah.
You always bring great book recommendations every time we have a meeting with you. What's a couple standout books in your mind right now, maybe that you've read in the last year that we'd all benefit from taking a circle around?
Yeah. So a couple of tips on the reading, and it's reading because a lot of the books, because we're so often in the car. So I'm love to walk and listen to Audible. So I'm one of those Audible.com super fans, right? I do read as well, but then the ones I read are usually ones I need to take a little bit slower time to reflect, because you need to, certain things you need to reflect a lot more on. So yeah, I do have physical books, but then the ones I actually like to listen to a lot of times are these business psychology, like, crossover books. But boy, so many good ones. I will say, I'll start off with a recommendation from a recent release, right, which is Malcolm Gladwell's Revenge of the Tipping Point. So a lot of people who know The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote the original one back, I think in 1999 or something around there. Outliers, so much good content that's out there. But in Revenge of the Tipping Point, the main point being that sometimes we have super spreaders, and we are all so close to these tipping points, right? And so in context for real estate, we're so close to having the best year ever. We're so close to building massive momentum. The flip side is we're also so close to getting out of the business, to not succeeding, to never making it to that tipping point. And so we have to identify, man, what's my tipping point? So as we start thinking about the new year, I can't be doing the same thing. I gotta reach the tipping point. I gotta do those. Sometimes it's just a couple little nuanced changes, and voila, it made a massive difference for my business. It could be one habit, it could be one ritual, it could be one rhythm. I think that's something that we all need to consider. What's that one thing that could be my tipping point that I'm really going to stay focused on the coming year? So I really like, that might be a more recent one, but I will take a second one if it's okay. Yeah. But if there's another one that I would highly recommend, it's interesting. It's a psychology book. It came out, probably about 10, 11 years ago, and the book is called Love 2.0. And it sounds a little funny, but it's a psychology book on the concept of love. Because in the English language, we kind of use love in different contexts. We love ice cream, or we love a favorite restaurant. So we use love very loosely. But then most of the time we use love in a very intimate, I will use love for just the people I absolutely care very deeply and closely about. But we can actually start thinking about love a little bit differently in terms of just when I'm curious about somebody and I just ask a few more deeper questions, something beyond, how's it going? How was your weekend, right? So if you are genuinely curious about it, then go a little bit further. So what's your plans for the coming year? And how are things really with you? We can go a little bit deeper, but, not to get anything out of it. It's more in terms of wow, I'm really curious. And when people are genuine and authentic, and we all recognize that when people are being genuine and authentic with us, asking us curious questions, we feel heard, we feel seen, we feel loved. In a certain way, we feel recognized. And that is all this part of the definition of love. So I think we need to rethink the idea of traditional love, the word, and do it from the perspective of, boy, you know what? I love it, in real estate when I, help my clients actually reach, generational wealth, actually build equity in their homes, right? When I hand them the keys on their first, house on the closing. I mean, that is such a sensational, intimate kind of experience. So I think this Love 2.0 concept, not just during the transaction, but way before a transaction, after a transaction, we've got to start thinking, boy, when I'm out there, I'm not selling myself. I just want to care for people. I just want to show genuine love.
Right.
And through that process, I think we feel less. Sometimes we feel I don't want to be salesy, right? That's one of the biggest challenges of real estate. Is just I don't want to be overly salesy. I want to be a professional. You know what? If we start to redefine love and care and be curious, it's going to help us to that tipping point, like I just said. So I think many ways those two things can kind of work side by side together.
It's so easy. We're so adept at knowing when somebody truly cares that's having a conversation with us.
Sure.
And you can really tell when people, they're more concerned about what their next question's going to be than how you're answering their first question.
Right.
And they're not trying to get deeper in the conversation.
Yeah.
You can tell. You can pick up on that easy.
Absolutely.
And so that's a great point. So Love 2.0.
Yeah, by Barbara Fredrickson.
Okay, and Revenge of the
Tipping Point. Yeah, by Malcolm Gladwell.
Excellent, excellent.
Well, and that's what I like, Howard. And when you come, so you came to our office at John L. Scott Tacoma North today to talk about business planning in 2025, but you also bring this kind of these concepts, which is a little bit different than your normal business planning.
Right.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, and you're going over some things today that I thought were really interesting. What stands out to you for 2025 as some of the most important things to focus on?
So many things that we can zoom way out, we can zoom way in, right? And so I think one of the things that we need to first do is kind of zoom way out, right, in 2025. And we always have to ask the question, what are some consumer behavior patterns? Right? What are some consumer behavior shifts? You know, so, and I'm not talking about just in real estate, but just in general. And we're clearly seeing an ongoing shift toward online streaming, right? So we're not just talking about social media. Obviously, social media has been, the amount of time, invested in social media. The average number of seconds that we're holding anybody's attention is like 7 seconds right now. Right. So there's social media. But then what's interesting is like one of the big consumer shifts is streaming YouTube on TVs. So we've heard people talk about, oh, you got to have social media content and, constantly being out there. But one of the things we also have to do is one of the main ones that skipped is YouTube. So when we actually have content, whether it's on a listing or whether it's basically like you talking about the market or something great, sometimes I see really good social media content, Instagram Reels, possibly TikToks, but I'm not seeing those additionally uploaded to YouTube. And so really we got to start thinking about social media. Okay, usually speaking, Instagram is for people that I know most of the time.
Right.
YouTube is for people I don't know. YouTube is for people who are Googling, right? Basically on YouTube searching neighborhoods, real estate investments, real estate opportunities, communities, all these kind of questions. And you want to populate, you want to basically show up. And so your numbers might not be as high on YouTube as obviously like on Instagram. However, you're actually going to have a longer kind of staying power because Instagram is, it's gone in a second, right? So you have a certain number of people see it. YouTube is there. I mean, that's for SEO purposes. So, I mean, and people are also watching that on TV more.
Right.
And more people are getting subscriptions, so there's no ads and stuff. So I would just recommend have a YouTube strategy if you're a real estate professional because consumer behavior shift. I mean, YouTube has more streaming on TVs than Netflix now.
Wow.
Which
Really?
So you think no way, but YouTube has I watch YouTube on my phone, but then whenever it's like something interesting, I go to the TV and watch it, right? Because all the TV apps, the Rokus, of course, all the streaming devices, all the smart TVs, they all have the YouTube app simply built in, and so that is just one of the things that we ought to take a look at is we got to be. Okay, so let me kind of wrap that portion up.
Okay.
Instead of being a real estate broker, be a knowledge broker, right? And so the knowledge is all about, what consumers are curious about, everything to do with financing, interest rates, investments, buying their first home, sometimes house hacking or co-buying is starting to become really popular as far as topics, like generational buying together. So maybe a boomer and basically a millennial maybe purchasing together. We're just talking about the fact that the average age of the home buyer has increased, and that's because home affordability is more difficult, right? Because interest rates are higher. So knowing all these little trends, it's like I've got to know some of that stuff by zooming out, then coming up with a content calendar, having a YouTube strategy, so that we're knowledge brokers, and that when we are Googled, I'm just like, oh yeah, you definitely know what you're talking about, because we know that consumers want to talk to a knowledgeable, hyper-local expert, so that's really part of the marketing and branding strategy. That part hasn't really changed that much, but we've got to be much more intentional, I think, in the coming year.
Well, and we're all consumers, so our clients expect that. Because that's how they're getting a lot of their information. And if they see their own house on YouTube, they can say, hey, I'm going to send it to Aunt Sally in Minnesota so she can see it too.
Absolutely, right? And people, right, who are consuming real estate content, they don't want to just see photos. They want to see videos. They want to see the floor plans, the Matterports, you talking about it, providing some context. And so I would say, even if you have a professional videographer, doing the YouTube, all the work as far as the house, give it the context, give it the voiceover. You can obviously use AI to help you generate some of that content, right? But be genuine about it. You can even podcast and have a conversation about it, right?
Sure.
So you are the expert. So just pretend you're actually taking a consumer through the property, the neighborhood. Talk about affordability, buy down opportunities. What the seller concessions might be if that's all permission based. That you ask. So it's kind of a great opportunity to really separate yourself out from the way that real estate marketing has been done in the past. Use the modern techniques and tools that are available today. And again, even the AI tools for video editing and things like that, they're just amazing right now.
Right. Yeah. So think real estate, but really think of yourself as a knowledge broker.
Be a knowledge broker.
Yeah,
what's the knowledge that you have? And here's the thing: we think, what I'm sure. If you even show up at a sales meeting, you have more knowledge, than the consumer, right? Because in the sales meeting, all the time, what's talked about in terms of the challenges, the market trends, the interest rates. There's amazing gold that's happening at every single sales meeting. You guys do a phenomenal job. And so I want everybody to be like, oh, if I go to a sales meeting, I'm trying to pick up notes on content. What do I want to reshare? And I might even start out with like, hey, everybody, it's Howard Chung with John Scott Real Estate. Hey, I just came out of a sales meeting, and one of the things we talked about was the fact that the interest rate only being lowered by 0.25% or whatever, it's not going to make a massive impact. However, if you wait for interest rates to drop, what's going to happen, of course, is home prices might actually go up because there's so much more buyer demand. So the better thing to do right now is try to find a seller willing to do a buy down for you. So if you're curious about what a buy down is, give me a call, because that can actually get you an amazing interest rate today, as well, of course, as get you have negotiating power right now when people are really trying to sell. So again, whatever the context is, we always need to be thinking, I'm a knowledge broker. What knowledge do I want to share with individuals, out on social media, through the YouTube. So, and plus it's fun. The more we can do that, it's just fun.
Right. Yeah, when you're talking about sales meeting, I know that sounds kind of old fashioned, but I really feel like that's the touchstone every week, that you can at least stay engaged in your business, especially when it's collaborative and everyone's talking. It's not just somebody talking at you, right? So I always look for like, oh, who's going to show up today and give me some information that I don't know, right?
Yeah, every now and then we'll do best real estate moment of the week and worst real estate moment of the last week.
I love that.
And they're just great conversations, because somebody is in the room right now thinking, oh, geez, this just happened on this appointment, and somebody else has got a better one. And so it helps everybody say, okay, baby, this is okay. This is just part of life. I stubbed my toe on this. I won't do that again. So we can learn from everybody.
Absolutely. And we call it a sales meeting, right? But a lot of times it's just educational accountability. That's really what we're doing, right? We're educating and holding them accountable to a higher standard. And so the people who actually come to the sales meetings, they actually are going to be probably a higher level professional, because they're just picking up on the little changes that are happening.
We had a conversation in one of our offices a couple weeks ago. Somebody drove by and saw somebody else's real estate sign on their client's house. And so we got a whole conversation about how you lose touch with your clients, and why do you fall out of their mental imaging of what a real estate broker is. And they're picking somebody. I think you brought it up in their meeting today, that sometimes people get picked because they're the most convenient.
That's right. We are in that time zone where it's just like, I want something that's convenient, instant right now. And as long as they got enough 4.5, 5-star reviews, and they were responsive very, very quickly, right? So, that matters.
So we used to have a saying in retail that customers only want 3 things. They want it yesterday, free, and perfect. And we've become a society that's used to getting instant gratification like that. But you shared some numbers with us about the amount of people that would use their real estate broker again, they just don't for some reason. So was it in the high 80 percentile range?
So this is not a new statistic. It's almost like every single year, for every transaction that does occur, the National Association of Realtors, sends out all these surveys. So it's a large sample, right? Because we've got millions, that basically go out, and enough feedback that comes in, and it always consistently says between 88, 89% of consumers say that they would use their real estate agent again, right? But only 12% actually do. So what's the big gap there? What's actually happening? So hold on to pause there. There's another number that says 80% of consumers will only interview one agent. Okay. So what's basically happening is we're not buying and selling all the time. So you may have been a great agent for me, right, back 3-4 years ago when you actually sold me the house, or listed my property for me. But we forget. We forget. And unless you've done such an amazing job where, I'm having a regular ongoing experience and you're giving me my, real estate update every single year. You remember the day or the week that you actually sold me the house. You're giving me a home anniversary gift or you're reminding me as well as giving me real estate knowledge and updates. So if I forget about you, but then like all of a sudden I just see a house in my neighborhood, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the house I've always wanted to be in. I go through an open house and people who weren't even intending to buy, they meet maybe the listing agent or, however next happens, the person who's in front of me, who's convenient, who's a professional. I don't want to bother Alan. All right, I've got to now go to the convenience like, oh, what was Alan's last name?
Right,
I mean, it might be one of those situations, right?
Yeah.
So then I'm just going to deal with the person who's in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, I would have used you, but it's not like I'm trying to harm you in any way. It's just that this person was convenient right in front of me.
Right.
That kind of ties in. You had another statistic about the top 1% of the brokers in our system.
Yeah.
And how does that tie into that 80% stat?
Yeah, so I think what we're often finding now are, the top agents are becoming more systematized, like any good business, right?
Right.
So any good business, they're going to be more systematized and they're going to have more systems and teams and, their project management and, the listing systems and communication systems and project management. All those are getting better and better. So they're getting more business. They're having more events. So like even though we have fewer transactions nationally and locally as well, happening, the top agents are doing better. The mid-producing, lower-producing agents are actually doing worse. And so what's happening, of course, is it's the top agents who are in fact doing, honestly, a better job communicating, staying in touch, and marketing themselves,
Right.
That's basically what's happening. And so they've got the systems and the money and, the process in place. And sometimes we're not even talking about a lot of money. We're just talking about putting a system in place.
Yeah.
So communication and follow-up and all that kind of stuff. So we're seeing the top people make more and then the mid and the lower do less. And so one of the encouragements we're saying is work to be a top agent. You're either going to have a tipping point to become a top agent or a tipping point to kind of maybe work your way out of the business or only receiving referral business because, the consumer demand is for high touch, high service, right? High communication. So important that we're doing a better job with that moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that in our offices, that's true. That's what's happening. And so what do you say to the folks that have, I call it threshold apprehension, getting into video, getting into marketing yourself, having a system, showing up for the meetings, doing all the things that you really need to do to sustain that growth?
So what's really interesting is in psychology, a lot of times it's hard to see our future selves. Right? We don't see our future self necessarily like growing or increasing, becoming wiser, like all these things. It's hard to see the future self. What's really easy to do is see our past self. So you can basically take a page after, wait a minute, but over the last 5-10 years, I've actually grown as an individual. I'm not exactly the same person. A lot of the core tendencies and some of those things, of course, the same. However, it's just like, boy, I've learned so much. I've grown so much. I've taken risk. Even going into the real estate business, it took risk going into the business, learning all the differences, right? And, selling your first house, the first set of keys, all that. So it's like, how is that any different than the ongoing evolution or change of like marketing yourself differently or making sure that you are on social media and of course caring enough with Love Point 2.0 kind of concepts where you're being curious, updating their information on the CRM. So a lot of times it's like the marketing piece on, in front of camera, I totally get that, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of like just becoming more systematized, making phone calls, stopping by, really that's probably going to be the main way you're going to get business and referrals anyway. So it's just like, okay, if the video thing is not your thing, all right, but what about like going ahead and making more, door knocks, right, to the people that care and love anyway? I think that's where the real magic is happening.
I think the flip side of that, of what you just talked about, is folks that it worked for you 5 years ago, so why should I change? And everything around you is changing, though.
Right.
It's kind of like, is your phone 5 years old? I guess some people have a 5-year-old phone, but for most of us, it's probably not that old anymore. Like, you don't have the original iPhone from 2009 or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
You have to change. It's like there's got to be little iterations, little nuances, little updates. We got to do the same exact thing with our business, our practices, our knowledge, our communications. And this was a big year, right? This past year in terms of buyer agency contracts, right? And all of those things. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. Well, you get through it. You learn it. There's new forms. There's new processes. That'll be an ongoing change. Consumer demands will be different as a result. Same thing with the way that you market yourself, use technology, use AI, right? And it's going to make arguably it should make systems and life a little easier and even more cost effective, which is very exciting. We just have to take the time to dive into that more.
Every update that hits us in the real estate world, we tend to fight. You
Yeah.
know, we fought when the databases went to computers, and we didn't get our weekly newspaper
You're starting
update,
to
right?
date us, man.
Yeah,
We
no,
still
I
have the
know, I
weekly,
know.
like, waiting behind the fax machine, right? Like, what new listings came out this week?
Then the fax machine came out, and I don't like that technology. And what was it then? Digital signing,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Yeah.
DocuSign,
Oh, yeah.
Authentisign. Oh, I don't like that. That's scary, you
Yeah.
know. And then we have in our real estate world, we use a electronic app for showing appointments.
Sure.
You know. Oh, I don't like that. That's you know. And so, but you get used to it, and then you realize, gosh. It's
Yeah.
like looking at a 20-year-old business card and saying, "Whoa,
Yeah.
what happened to me?"
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So we fight it, but I think if you just accept it, it is what it is, and how can I make it work for me?
For sure.
Almost every instance, and we're glad that we went through it because the outcome is a lot better. For example, on the brokerage side, we used to review our files, and we put together paper files.
Yeah.
And we would have rooms full of them. And now we just do it in the cloud, and
Right.
it's so much better,
Oh, yeah.
right? But getting from the paper file to the cloud was a big deal.
Right.
Everyone resisted that,
Yeah.
including us.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You mean I have to upload this?
Yeah, what? I don't want to do that.
Well, I don't have time to do that. I'm
can't
watching
somebody else-
YouTube
yeah,
right now. I
that's
don't have
right.
time to do that. So,
So I know you have to get out of here and go talk to other folks, but what would be like the one thing you would tell an agent going into 2025 to work on and really focus on?
So let me talk first a little bit about the change, right?
Okay.
And then let me address like some final things,
Yep.
right? So I think there's a psychology of change, and a lot of times, and you kind of talked about it earlier, the difference between stress and eustress.
eustress, right,
And so I want to talk about that really quick. And basically, and you can of course Google this and look this up, but there is, when we reference stress, it's basically a reference to distress. And so when we are distressed, right? Oh, we're stressed out, right? Oh man, we have anxiety and depression, and we drink too much, and we become, like our worst selves, right? We become angry or irritable. I mean, like, those are all not good signs of, there's something happening right now where I am stressed out, right? And so we want to all of a sudden be isolated, and so all the associations with stress kind of occur. We want to procrastinate, because a lot of it's fear-based. But then there's another word, a Greek word called eustress, EU stress. And eustress, simply means good stress. And so when we talk about business planning or change, and we're talking about, hey, these were good changes. Well, learning something new, right, that's good stress. Hey, doing a business plan, having a new plan of action, maybe doing a different way of marketing or using technology, that's good stress. So a lot of times people are afraid or they're hesitant, they procrastinate because they feel stressed out about it. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be so frustrating. I'm not good with technology. It's just like, no, this is a good thing that's gonna help you in your business. And remember, you put the stress on. So if you decide, I'm gonna do more transactions this year, I'm gonna connect with more people this year, I'm gonna use, every single listing to get another listing, right? Whatever kind of business plan strategy that you have, remember, those are good stress moments. And so don't associate a distress with a good stress and be like, oh, that's right, I put this on myself. I do plan on being a top agent. I do want to be a knowledge broker. I do want to reach out and care for my clients more, which then causes me to be in my discomfort zone or my learning zone, right? And so I would say psychologically, we've got to start to separate out moments of distress with eustress. So we have a positive association with eustress. And I'm gonna schedule on Fridays these 7 a.m. coffee meetings and stuff like that. It's just like, oh, I don't normally do that. Feels a little stressful. It's good stress. Let's create more good stress. It's no different than, hey, when my muscles are tearing a little because I'm exercising and they're growing as a result,
Yep.
or my heart is actually beating super fast because I'm actually exercising it more. That's all a good stress. So just know the difference between good stress and distress, right? Mm-hmm. So let's start to utilize that more to our advantage. Now, the final thing that you were asking is in 2025, what is a really good tip for real estate brokers or people in general, businesses in general? Move from being in chaos to being in chronos and kairos. So what I mean by that, these are all the Greek words, right? So chaos is a word for complete confusion or disorder. And a lot of times we have so many emails in our inbox that it will cause stress. And it's chaos. Because we don't, honestly, when we have too many emails in the inbox, it means that we don't have a system for organizing email. Well, but there's systems for that. In fact, you can, read like David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, and the way that you might organize, moving from the inbox to an action folder, from an action folder to a follow-up folder and review folder, from a review folder to like a file folder. It's just like, if I do that very quickly every single time, and of course you can start doing it in bulk at first, but then over time it's just like, wow, I never have any more than 3, 4, 5 emails in the inbox. I review them, then I put them into one of the boxes, then I've got time set, and, so that I have action items, and I'm actually getting more done, right? Even in something like email communication. The other part of chaos that we talked about today was, just like you've got too many emails in the inbox, if your calendar has a lot of blanks, because you don't have a repeating and recurring events for business development in particular, that's also chaos. Blanks in your calendar is chaos. It's complete disorder and confusion. You don't know what's happening today. You don't know what's happening next week. You don't know what's happening the week after that. There should be regular set times so that I have a consistency or more consistency, in my calendar, and finally in my contacts, a CRM system. A blank CRM, or like I've got you name, telephone number, email address. That's all I have.
Right.
Well, what's the home address? How much is their home worth? When was the last time you followed up with them? Are they interested in investment property? Like, what's happening with their kids? Like, do they get get a promotion, or did they lose a job? Like, that's all back to data, so that I don't have chaos in my CRM.
Right.
So empty CRM, empty calendar is also chaos. So just by starting to focus a little bit more on those systems, we're going to move from chaos to what I call Chronos, which is a more organized system, and Kairos, which is an amazing word. It is an opportune time. So I'm always going to be looking for opportune times, right, to reach out to customers and clients. I know that Fridays are the happiest day of the week. I'm going to use Fridays to reach out to people. Home anniversaries, wedding anniversaries, birthdays. I mean, like, any reason I can reach out to somebody, to a community, I'm going to take that Kairos opportunity, right? An interest rate drop, a new program I just learned about. Wow, that's all opportunities for me to be a knowledge broker. So you just start to move from, and in life, right, moving from chaos into Chronos and Kairos, and then eventually to be in this rhythm and flow, right? That's ultimately what we want to be in this business, to be like, wow, the business time is so fun in the real estate business. I'm making plenty of money, my time, my work with clients. I mean, that's the picture we almost have to create, right? So when we do business planning, it's not just about how much money I want to make. I've got to have a clear picture in terms of what my life is going to look like as part of that plan.
It's funny because we think of chaos, a lot of times, at least I used to think of it as clutter.
Yeah.
But it really can be just the void or the randomness in which you do things.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
You call it an open loop, which I really appreciate that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I have lots of open loops. I was checking my email. This drives Alan crazy. I have like 25,000 emails in my inbox.
So I have somebody in my office, every time I walk by their computer, they have like 257 thumbnails, shortcuts on their desktop. And I'm like, how can you do that?
And on your topic, like anybody who's like stressed out with like they've got too many emails, I'll give you a quick tip.
Okay, I need it.
When you move on the inbox and you sort it instead of the time that it was sent, you sort it by who was sent by, so from.
Okay.
You'll find that that's all these blocks of the people. And a lot of the emails that you have are notifications. They're kind of the spammy promo things, and they're all now blocked. So it's just like, I can get rid of an entire block almost instantly. So it might be thousands of emails seemingly, but it's only really 200 senders. And 200 senders, of which only like 10 are really important. Yeah. You can scroll through so fast and just like, I can prioritize this pretty quickly and bulk move or bulk delete a lot of those emails into the file category system. So I would highly recommend you just spend a few hours in a single block and be like, oh my gosh, now I'm closing this loop, and you feel like this massive weight's been lifted, and you'll actually sleep better.
That's great. So there you go. Important safety tip.
Yeah.
Sort from the sender, not the date that you received.
This is when you're doing that initial bulk work, but you're always, of course, keeping an eye for the important ones, right? Yeah.
So as we kind of close the book on 2024 and we go into 2025, I know you're big on themes. You come up with themes for how you want to focus this next year. What's your theme for 2025?
Yeah. So this is a repeated theme. So I've had different themes before. Abundance was one. one, gratitude was one, but like I'm bringing back one for myself personally from 2017 because I actually had my, like a whole printed out thing that said like thrive was the word. I'm bringing thrive back, and I love the word thrive because thrive is different than happiness. Right? Content can be another one. I mean, there's so many that we could use, but thrive is like a word like flourish, or just being a deeper level of just movement that's beyond happiness. It's driven. So I'm not going to be happy all the time, but I can thrive, right?
Right.
And so the picture for me of thriving is back to the question as far as like, what's a book recommendation on the Love 2.0? I just want to be engaged with more people. I want to be curious with more people. I know that if I'm curious with more people, I'm going to thrive. And they might thrive too as a result of that, right? So for me, I just want to make sure, like, yesterday I was so tired because I was like, like on the road all day, and I had another office party to go to at night. And so I was just like, I was kind of like dreading like having to go to another event. But I was just like, wait a minute, I get to meet with people, ask curious questions, check in on them. And then I gained energy just thinking about it. And of course, while I was there, it was so much fun, and I did gain energy. Right. And so you can thrive. And so we got to create a picture for ourselves, in terms of what the theme looks like, as well as a positive emotion. And that will also make an impact in terms of how we decide to act, in the coming year.
So thrive in 25.
Thrive in 25.
I love
Nice.
it.
Love it.
Well, we appreciate you, Howard. Thanks for coming. Happy New Year. This will be out in the new year, and we'll see you in 2025.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you bet.
Keep
Thank
it
you.
up. Appreciate it.